When we think of Austria, our minds often conjure images of rolling green hills, grand imperial palaces, and a world where classical music reigns supreme. We hear the echoes of Mozart, the grand sweeps of Strauss's waltzes, and the rhythmic stomp of the Schuhplattler. This is the Austria we know from the history books, a nation built on a foundation of deep-seated traditions. But what if I told you this is only part of the story? What if Austria's cultural narrative is not a static postcard from the past but a living, breathing tapestry that continues to weave new threads with every generation? In this video essay, we're going on a journey. We'll dive deep into the heart of Austria's traditional music and dance, exploring their rich origins and understanding the values that shaped them. Then we'll fast forward to the present day to see how these ancient arts have adapted, blended, and sometimes even clashed with modern sounds and movements. Our story begins high in the Alpine valleys, nestled amongst soaring peaks. In these isolated rural villages, the rhythms of life were dictated not by the clock, but by the sun, the seasons, and the demands of the land. Here, traditional folk music, known as Volksmusik, wasn't simply entertainment. It was the ever-present soundtrack to daily existence, an authentic expression of the people who lived there. This music was born from the community, for the community, passed down by ear and by heart. Its melodies were carried on instruments like the steirische harmonica, its breathy tones providing an infectious energy. Then came the soulful zither, its delicate strings plucked to create melodies of both melancholy and joy. And underpinning it all was the sturdy acoustic guitar, providing a reliable rhythmic foundation. The lyrics were a living history, painting vivid pictures of their world. They told tales of blossoming love, the majesty of the alpine landscape, and the raw, honest struggles of everyday life, from a successful hunt to a poor harvest. And where there was music, there was dance. Two of the most iconic are the Landler and the Schuhplattler. The Landler, a lively partner dance in 3/4 time, is the rustic ancestor of the more refined Viennese waltz. Couples would spin and turn, their movements energetic and close. It embodied communal joy and the subtle, playful games of courtship. The Schuhplattler was something else entirely, a spectacular, almost acrobatic display of male prowess. Its origins thought to mimic the courtship dance of the mountain capercaillie bird. Men would stomp their feet, clap their hands, and slap their thighs, knees, and shoe soles in a rapid, percussive rhythm. This explosive performance was a direct courtship ritual, meant to impress the young women of the village with a show of strength and agility. These traditions reveal core cultural values: community, physical strength, and shared joy. They were participatory arts, part of weddings and festivals. Not choreographed shows, but the social glue of rural society, reinforcing a sense of identity and belonging. They were inextricably tied to the landscape and to communal life. But as the 19th century progressed, the lure of the city grew stronger, pulling people from the valleys towards the bustling imperial capital, where these rustic traditions would transform. Next, the Imperial era and the rise of classical refinement. As our journey moves from the countryside to the city, the music and dance transform. Vienna became the world's capital of classical music. This was the era of the first Viennese school, Mozart, Beethoven, and the Strauss family. The raw energy of the Landler was polished, evolving into the graceful Viennese waltz. This dance mirrored values of precision, etiquette, and hierarchical formality. The ballroom was a place to see and be seen. Music became a refined art form, a symbol of imperial power and intellectual achievement. From grand symphonies to intricate operas, it spoke to sophistication and intellectualism. It was about structure, harmony, and a pursuit of perfection. This era created a stark divide between village folk arts and city refinement. For a long time, the two worlds coexisted but rarely overlapped. Next, how the 20th and 21st centuries blur these lines. The 20th and 21st centuries have brought seismic shifts to Austrian culture. The fall of an empire and the turmoil of two world wars gave way to a period of intense self-reflection. The old certainties were gone, creating a fertile ground for something new to grow. Forces like globalization, urbanization, and immigration began to dissolve the old dichotomies that once defined the nation. The rigid divide between high classical art and rustic folk traditions, between the sophisticated city and the simple countryside. This shattered landscape didn't lead to chaos, but to an era of unprecedented creative fusion. Today's artists are cultural alchemists, taking the raw materials of traditional folk music and fearlessly smashing them together with the energy of rock, the pulse of electronic music, and the lyrical flow of hip-hop. This vibrant sound is often called Neue Volksmusik, or New Folk Music. It's a movement that seeks to reclaim tradition not as a museum piece, but as a living, breathing entity. Producers act as musical archaeologists, sampling fragments of classical symphonies or forgotten folk melodies. The zither or accordion, once confined to the village tavern, now find a home in the studio, their timbres reworked into hypnotic beats and loops. The result is music that feels both deeply local and thrillingly international. It speaks of its alpine origins while connecting to a global conversation, a sound you could hear in a club in Vienna, Berlin, or New York. This same spirit of fusion animates the world of dance. The formal elegance of the ballroom has given way to stages where the vocabulary is dynamic and diverse, drawing from contemporary jazz and the raw power of hip-hop. But even here you'll find echoes of the past, a percussive stomp recalling the Schuhplattler, a graceful swirl like a ghost of the Landler waltzing through a modern landscape. Choreographers use this dialogue with history to explore urgent social themes: identity, migration, community, no longer bound by the rigid etiquette of the past. The focus has shifted from the pursuit of perfect form to the expression of raw, honest emotion. Movement becomes a powerful language for complex ideas, a way to tell new stories about what it means to be Austrian today. Festivals across the country have become vital laboratories for these hybrid forms, attracting new audiences where old cultural hierarchies dissolve. A new generation, listening with fresh ears, understands this isn't a competition, it is a rich and ongoing dialogue between eras, creating a culture that is constantly reinventing itself, forever in motion. Next, the influence of immigration and the cultural mosaic. We cannot discuss Austria's evolving arts without acknowledging the profound influence of those who chose to make this nation their home. To do so would be to ignore the very pulse of its modern creative spirit. In recent decades, Austria has become a vibrant destination for people seeking new opportunities and a new life. Communities from Turkey, the former Yugoslavia, and beyond arrived, carrying with them not just their hopes, but the rich tapestry of their own cultures. The air filled with new languages, the scent of unfamiliar spices, and the resonant sounds of distant homelands. Immigrant communities brought with them cherished musical traditions, like the soulful, stringed melodies of the Turkish saz, and the powerful communal energy of Balkan folk dances such as the kolo, a circle of unity and celebration. Initially, these traditions often existed in parallel, distinct cultural streams flowing side by side within Austrian society. But culture is not static, it is a living, breathing entity. Over time, curiosity and collaboration sparked a remarkable process of intersection. Musicians and artists began to listen to one another, finding common ground in rhythm and shared human experience. Now we see second and third generation Turkish-Austrian musicians masterfully blending the intricate microtones of a baglama with the familiar cadence of an Austrian folk melody, creating something entirely new, yet deeply rooted. These artists forge compelling hybrids that honor both their ancestral origins and their contemporary Austrian identities, telling complex stories of belonging. In the world of dance, choreographers incorporate the defiant, rhythmic stomps of kolo steps into contemporary pieces, lending them a raw, visceral power that speaks to themes of struggle, community, and resilience. For the new generations growing up in this cultural confluence, these blended traditions are not a novelty. They are simply the fabric of everyday life. Their playlists might jump from a Viennese waltz to a Balkan beat, their family meals a fusion of schnitzel and kebab. The arts become a vital bridge, a space for dialogue connecting old and new, local and global, native and newcomer. This bridge isn't just one way, it facilitates a dynamic exchange that enriches everyone. Rhythms from the Balkans and the Near East introduce complex, asymmetrical meters that add new layers of syncopation to traditional Austrian songs. This represents a powerful and conscious shift toward a more inclusive multiculturalism, a conversation held through harmony and rhythm. A Turkish-Austrian musician might blend the melancholic improvisational freedom of Makam scales with the structured beauty of alpine motifs, creating a soundscape that is at once familiar and thrillingly foreign. Even informal gatherings like street dance battles become dynamic sites of cultural exchange and spontaneous innovation, where hip-hop meets folk. Vienna, and indeed all of Austria, becomes a living mosaic, A masterpiece that emerges not in spite of its diverse parts, but because of them. Recognizing this, cultural institutions now actively program mixed heritage nights and cross-cultural festivals, moving beyond mere tolerance to genuine celebration. Through supportive policy and grassroots community efforts, this ongoing exchange is nurtured and sustained. The arts in Austria have become a shared and constantly evolving story, a new, more complex and ultimately more beautiful symphony for the 21st century. So what have we learned from this journey? Traditional Austrian music and dance were built on community, hierarchy, and a deep connection to the land. As the country evolved, so did its arts, shifting to refined classical expression, and now to fluid, diverse expression. The old values of rigid structure are giving way to fluidity, diversity, and individual expression. This isn't a loss of tradition, it's a transformation. Old melodies echo with new harmonies. The arts are a canvas for fusion and cultural dialogue. Old dances are reinterpreted, new rhythms join the old. A new generation will carry the symphony forward. The traditional and the modern are no longer separate, they are intertwined. The old symphony of Austria has never been more alive, more diverse, or more compelling. We have the privilege of watching it unfold, and the music has never sounded better.
Please subscribe and give your feedback. Like and share. Thank you.